Ladies and gentlemen, on the Shrek Gamer Telecom video, let us discuss the Twitch audio copyright situation, shall we? Because already people are getting fairly concerned over this. In fact, there's already been a number of false flags. Now, if you're not too familiar with the situation, I'll briefly go over it before I give my opinions and a little bit of background. So, the situation is as follows. Twitch are most likely going to be bought out by YouTube, and that's one of the reasons that most people are associating these changes. So the changes are currently only going to affect VODs, video on demand, in other words, not live streams. So what they've basically said is that they've already admitted that this is not a perfect system, and the reason they're admitting this is because there's already been a number of false flags. Twitter has actually been bombarded with them. For example, one of the most just crazy ones is Valve's official Dota 2 tournament videos have actually had segments of audio muted for copyright infringement. Now, it's very easy when I say that to think to yourself, okay, did it misread some of the music in the game? Did it perhaps misread a ringtone from someone who was passing by the microphone? Maybe they had, say, the latest audio track from the charts. Was it the crowd started to randomly sing something in the background? No. In fact, what it actually was is the crowd cheering, and the noise of the crowd generally was actually misread somehow or another as music. And in fact, and perhaps even more embarrassing than all of these, are videos on Twitch's own channel were actually hit with these problems. So when you consider this, there's most likely going to be hundreds and hundreds of false positives. So you can have all the good intention in the world, but the problem with it is it just doesn't seem to be as robust as it should be. So Twitch are going to be implementing an appeals button. That's fairly obvious. The problem with appealing, as you can imagine, is that, well, you have to appeal. So in other words, the situation doesn't necessarily get resolved instantly, but I guess we're just going to have to wait on that one. The problem is, while gamers are fairly worried about this, and you've got to remember you shouldn't just be worried about the fact of gamers from the perspective of streaming. You should also think about it as a stream monster. Let's assume that you're watching a stream of, say, a tournament. I watch fighting game tournament streams occasionally, sometimes StarCraft, whatever, and it falsely identifies a section of audio as copyrighted music. Well, that means potentially I'm going to be basically just looking at video for 30 minutes, absolutely no narration at all. So if I don't know what players have just come on screen, because sometimes they don't update the overlay or whatever in time, that means I'm like, well, who's playing? Is it first to 3, first to 5, or best to 3, best to 5? Is it what? I mean, what's going on? I mean, that's one of the reasons you've got commentary. So this is pretty brutal when you think about it. Now, as I mentioned, this is not currently implemented for on-demand video. This is implemented purely on on-demand video, not for live streams. That's the current plan. And I don't know why one would be copyright infringement and the other one would not be, though. Because even according to attorneys, they just don't understand this. It's like, okay, I can live stream myself playing a game, that's fine, so I could play, say, GTA, and I could have all the sound effects off, I could shut my damn mouth and just basically be chilling and listen to the audio tracks, and that's legal. But if I have video on demand, that's not. I mean, yes, you can argue fair use, but why does a fair use then apply to video on demand? It's a very, very confusing. And when you further consider that one of the reasons, I mean, there's multiple reasons for fair use, right? That's why you can, for example, do video reviews, even movies on YouTube, because of various acts of fair use. Unfortunately, fair use for video games, the actual laws which govern it are, well, let's just not mince words, they're fucked. They're completely and utterly battered to shit, because most of the laws which govern this are just simply predate when video games were created, and when the internet was created, so a lot of this just falls into a grey area. So what you're getting, of course, is a situation where the music industry is obviously putting a lot of pressure. One could argue, fairly legitimately to be honest, who in the balls is going to use Twitch long term to listen to audio from an artist? It's like, what's the point when there are so many other streaming services out there? But still, I digress. So yes, technically in a lot of situations, studios do have a right to enforce audio. The problem is, though, it just pisses people off, and it actually just turns people away. And this is a much larger discussion that I don't necessarily want to fully get into, but I'm just going to touch on it because I think it's poignant. But the music industry has been struggling for a while, and I honestly believe, for the most part, they just simply don't really know what to do about this whole internet situation. I mean, even when CDs were being pirated quite easily, you know, when everyone was back in the 90s, when everyone bought a DVD burner, a CD burner, and you always knew that one guy who would always be willing to say, hey dude, do you want a burned CD? You know, I personally didn't really do it that much, but you know that person who did have hundreds of blank CDs that were going to be used for something. But they understood that, and that was like no different from when you had cassette tapes, or back even before that. Now it's really different because it's so bloody easy to get music, even for a band that you've likely only heard of for one song, and they're completely and utterly obscure. There is going to be that one track, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on another streaming service such as Spotify, it's going to be there somewhere. Now, what's very, very, very odd about this, when you consider, is that a chap by the name of Johnny Blakeborough, he's actually a lead tech for Desert Bus for Hope, which is basically a charity stream, and he's been discussing this with Polygon. Now, he also created a blog post, and one of the problems with this is that audio changes. Twitch made it clear that their software via a company known as Audible Magic, would target in-game music and ambient sounds in addition to music simply being layered on top of the stream. But the problem is, currently, in its current incarnation, you don't know what's actually caused the video to be muted. So why? Was it the game's music? Was it sound effect? Was it me, say, humming a popular melody? What? Why? Was it that your brother in the other room happened to have the radio on at the same time, and you know, just there's a gust of wind and it happened to blow your door open at the same time his door went open, and it caught 3 seconds of his audio, and that's why the system got it? Or was it just because it just felt like it? So here's the thing. It's currently only affecting VoD. So let's just assume for one moment that VoD is the only thing it's going to affect, just for a moment. And many don't believe that's the case, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that that will be the case. Okay, the problem is, realistically, most people, particularly for longer live streams, I mean, for shorter ones, let's just say, for example, you know, you're doing a quick live stream, say a couple of hours, okay, you're probably going to get a lot of viewers who are going to be able to stay to the end. But if you're doing charity events, for example, or you're doing like complete playthroughs of games, or you're going to be there for several hours, like fighting game events or whatever, just for example, or you're more interested in, say, watching the finals, or you're at work, or you're at college, or you need to sleep because it's really late at night when you're watching it, the only way you're going to be able to watch this sucker is VoD. It's that simple. Particularly, for example, if they are on the ass end of the world compared to you. So I guess the option now is to start uploading this to YouTube, and we all know how robust YouTube's copyright system is. Now, while I've not heard of or watched the chat personally, there is a broadcaster on Twitch known as Man vs. Game. Now, these chaps have over 200,000 followers and regularly average over 5,000 plus viewers on any night, really. So during a stream yesterday, the fellow who run it, Jason Love, isn't too happy. He actually screamed, "Thanks, Google," and then stated, "Artists deserve to be paid for the work they do," but then called the system that's currently in place by Twitch fucking atrocious, as his words, because many of his archive videos have already been affected. Now, currently he's calmed down a little bit. Polygon have actually stated that, yes, he's calmed down, but he now thinks that, yes, okay, it could possibly get better over time. But he still feels like he's been betrayed. Why is it with me speaking suddenly? Betrayed by Twitch. So, you can imagine that not only are you getting false identifications, because, let's face it, we've already gathered the system for some reason believes that people cheering in a crowd is music, which I guess if you compare it to some modern music, you could see how they would make that mistake. But worse, what if the artists themselves don't necessarily want it? So, for example, let's say you've created music for a game, and you get false positives. Well, Danny, Baranowski, hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, I'm terrible with names, has actually created music for, say, Super Meat Boy and The Binding of Isaac and various other titles. For example, the Steam Early Access game, Crypt of the Necromancer. And he's already taken to Twitter because people are already stating, what's going on? Like, I'm playing your game and I'm getting sections of audio being flagged, and he actually owns the full control of this music. It's his. He can do whatever the hell he wants with it. He can license it to films, he could give it to you. It's his. The problem is, it's being muted by Twitch, and he physically can't get it unmuted. It's his! He can't get it unmuted. And he's actually gone off the phone with the lawyer, and this is according to Polygon, and he said, and I quote, that what appears to be happening is that the Audible Magic, which is, as we said earlier, is the software that's being used by Twitch to identify this stuff, is actually misidentifying the Crypt of the Necrodancer music as someone else's music in their catalogue. And he doesn't even know who it is. He can't get answers. And Twitch won't tell him what it is, and because it's 30 minutes at a time, it's like, well, good luck trying to figure that out, because it could just be a quick succession of notes. Like, you know, for example, sometimes how some songs you're like, okay, oh, it's this song, I love this song. Oh, wait, it's a completely different song, because the intros sound very similar, or it could be, it just isn't super accurate. It's basically a carpet bombing approach. And yes, there is ways to whitelist the music, which is great. So to whitelist the music, you have to actually send a copy of your music over to them. That would be the chaps over at Audible Magic. And this is what he's going to be doing. The problem is for him, because it's still being created, he hasn't gotten everything in it, there are going to be changes and iterations to the music. So the problem is, why is it opt out rather than opt in? These are his words. It's like, okay, if you want your music to be scanned, fine. But if you don't, surely you shouldn't have to say that. The problem is, Twitch is becoming a big target. If you're tiny, it's, generally speaking, not necessarily worth going after you. Twitch is no longer tiny. They are becoming one of the largest sites. It's like when you're starting to compete traffic-wise for websites such as Facebook, you know you're starting to make it. And if I said to $1 billion, you might think to yourself, what the hell's $1 billion got to do with this? Well, that's how much Viacom actually sued YouTube when they were bought out by Google. They weren't sued prior, and this is what a lot of people are saying. It's like, okay, once Twitch actually have money, because let's face it, at the moment, you can get really lucky with their server. Like, for example, I'll be watching a stream at the highest quality possible, and everything's great. It looks amazing. The quality's amazing. The frame rate's great. There's no audio delay, it's perfect. It just almost like you're watching it on YouTube. And then maybe their hamsters get hungry or whatever, and their server just starts to feel like an asthmatic slug, and sometimes it's not even conducive to the amount of viewers on that specific stream. And so because of that, obviously, this is one of the reasons they're apparently going to be taking Google's money, because it's a massive cash injection into their system. So at the moment, they're not exactly flush with cash. Yes, they are getting a lot of viewers, but their infrastructure as a whole is pretty much just about surviving. So here's the bottom line for those of you who have managed to stick around. There's an appeal button with Twitch, and that's great. It's good that they're adding this. The problem is that while we can easily just beat Twitch on the head, and it's very, it's also very tempting to do the same with YouTube. It's very easy to do it with Google. And yes, I don't feel necessarily that the way they've implemented their system is the best, particularly YouTube's policy with copyright. It should be done very differently. But it's more a effect rather than the root cause. The root cause, to be honest with you, is the studios which are basically making them do this. And when you're going up against the huge music industry, which has so much clout and more lawyers at its disposal than most likely you've got employees in your entire company, you have to start treading very carefully. And here's the problem, the root bottom line. It's very, very easy to just make a target. And you're just looking at Twitch, you're looking at YouTube, and you just target them, and you say, okay, it's your fault. It's not just us streamers or us video producers that have to do this, by the way. It's also you as viewers, if you value these services, and you like watching Twitch. And I personally, RGTV very rarely stream, to be honest. But generally speaking, it's not down to just the creators, it's down to the viewers as well. Yes, you have to make your voices heard to YouTube. Yes, you have to make your voices heard to Twitch. But the real bottom line is, for the most part, it's the music industry, it's the movie producers, or rather the movie companies. Those are the ones you really need to start pressuring. Those are the ones you need to say, hey, this isn't cool. Let's come to an agreement, but right now this is a bad situation for everyone, and it is. It's not a good situation for anyone involved. Short term, yes, it's good for the music industry because they feel that they're winning a victory because their music is not being pirated, but it's not really being pirated in live streams or games or anything like that anyway, because let's face it, are you really, really, really going to be listening to your favorite band via Twitch, which just incidentally happens to be part of some dude's Let's Play of Assassin's Creed? Most likely not. Oh, and we could also start pressuring some of the rather silly game companies out there as well. I'm pretty sure you don't need me to say names like, say, Square Enix and Warner Brothers and so on, that are, well, just as bad. Oh dear. Why can't things ever just be simple? And this is why we cannot have nice things at all. Anyway, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. It's gone a little bit ranty, but hopefully you've stuck with me. Anyway, if you could do the ye old traditional thumbs up, or share, or a like, or a hug, or a comment, that would be mighty appreciated. But I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.